Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird. Happy Monday. It's time to talk about the goddess Modron again. I have been consistently making my little efforts to work with her, learn a little bit more about her, and unlike her son Mabon, I've had a smidge more success, but I've also been approaching this from a slightly different standpoint. With Mabon, I was just looking to make a connection in general if I could. With Modron, I had some pretty serious questions about her identity and exactly who it is I'm addressing when I'm calling out to her. So I have approached this goddess though like a detective trying to solve a mystery, and my efforts have been just absolutely focused on addressing the question, is she the same being as the Morrigan and or the goddess Rhiannon? So I've been analyzing the mythologies of Modron, Rhiannon, and the Morrigan, and I've been going over them and over and over them. There are correlations that I can't deny. In particular, they all have a shared connection with the Isle of Avalon, the office of the Lady of the Lake, and they all touch Arthurian legend in one way or another. That does seem a little too coincidental to just be a coincidence. My efforts to reach out to all three of them in meditation has been successful. Rhiannon's energy feels quite useful. She always appears to me as a young woman, but she always looks far wiser and feels far wiser than what the appearance of her years is. Obviously, she's quite ancient, but she looks very young. And when I'm addressing her, she just seems to see straight into the heart and soul of an issue. Just cuts through the distractions, the noise, everything outside of the core issue just goes right to the heart of it. Modron is just as motherly as you might expect her to be, with her name meaning literally the mother. Her emotions do feel closer to the surface, and I don't want to describe them as up and down, but there does seem to be more emotional range, a little bit more turmoil, which is to be expected because, of course, she experienced the loss of her child. She does feel just ancient as the soil herself. So I do get more of a sense of this is a goddess, or at least a face of the same goddess, that is really willing to show the depth of her maturity. And then that brings us to the Morrigan, who is, well, the Morrigan. I feel her passion, her turbulence, her protective ferocity, all these things that are her trademark. She just feels ageless. With Modron, you still feel like the years have some meaning still, but with the Morrigan, she just feels beyond that, as though she's graduated to this whole other level. And she seems to delight in the mystery that surrounds her, and for all I can tell, appeared quite entertained that I have been focusing on this question of who exactly are all of these goddesses and what is their relationship with one another. Now, I've also tried divination, but the results have been ambiguous at best. When I go to lay out the cards on the subject, I feel resistance. I just feel it right in my head. It's almost as if this is a tool that I shouldn't be using when wrestling with this question. Now, there have been occasions when I ignored that feeling and I went ahead, laid out my tarot cards, but the results just didn't make any sense. It didn't relate to what I was asking. They didn't seem to have any kind of cohesive message. I'd look and look and look at them, but it was as if I was getting a roadblock, if someone just threw up random cards and in an attempt to keep me from going down that track. So I thought that was an interesting development. But all in all, I've been approaching this from a very left-brained, very intellectual basis, and I have discovered the limitations of doing analysis in this way. I've compared and contrasted mythologies, magical correspondences, their powers, their areas of responsibilities, and it's taken me so far. But it has given me grounds to suspect these goddesses might be the same being, just known by different names. But it's just not enough evidence to convince me that this is absolutely the case. I'm not willing to change the way I do my practice in reaction to what I've learned. And it does make a difference whether they are separate and the same when you practice. It's not like this is a moot issue. The answer is quite important. Prayers, meditation, and pathworking haven't solved the mystery either. At first glance, the energies seem extremely different from each other. But as I've reflected upon it, there is still a common thread to these energies. They are all very steadfast, and that steadfastness feels similar. But still, there are differences in their respective energies, and it still has me questioning. You would think that saying, oh, they've got this really strong core of steadfastness, and it's just, maybe this is the clue that convinces me, but just not quite. Not quite. And after I've been firmly rebuffed by the tarot, I hesitate to try and use the cards again. I think that would be a fruitless effort. But I do find myself wondering if I would get a different response from the Ogham. I have yet to attempt it. I am not as well versed in the Ogham as I am in the tarot. I don't use it as often. So right now I'm just waiting to get some sort of sense about, would this be the right thing to do? Is it that they don't want me to try to solve this through divination, or is it just the particular modality of divination that I was using that they were saying no? The Ogham would be more culturally specific to all three of these goddesses, so maybe, but I don't know. I haven't quite felt moved to do that yet, so until I do, I'm just going to wait and hold off on that. So, with all of these conflicting ideas, what could I possibly conclude about Modron's identity at this point? First, I'm convinced that I'm not wrong to try to figure out the answer to this question. It doesn't feel like I'm doing something improper, presumptuous, or intrusive. I think it's fine to ask the question and to try to find out the answer. But just because I haven't found out the answer after a few weeks of investigation and, and thinking and meditating, that doesn't mean that the answer can't be found, or that I won't be eventually convinced but one way or the other. It just means that the quest continues. I've got more work to do. Now, the intellectual process has gotten me to a pretty significant point, a point where I feel like I can find the answer, like the answer is going to matter to me. But it's not going to be enough to get me the answer. The intellectual process alone just won't be enough. So I'm not going to abandon my more left brain approach altogether, but there is a time for the brain to be in the lead and the time for it to be more of a supportive role, and I think that's where it's going. I think I need to lean further into my intuition, perhaps pay closer attention to my emotional reactions to information as I come across it, and just see where that takes me on this winding road. But my brain by itself is not going to get the job done. So, really, this leaves me, as I'm sure it has left many other people, with the conclusion that discoveries of this kind is a process, not an event. And really, the most worthwhile questions we could ask about spirituality, they do not have answers that can just be easily Googled and it's settled, and then you never really have to think about it again. The Google approach is just, okay, here's the information, just listen and accept, and you don't really have to peel back the layers. You don't have to really get under the skin of it. You don't have to think about it. This is about thinking, feeling, intuiting. This is about getting more than just what people can reasonably say on the internet. So if I maintain this course as I intend to, I think I am on the path of learning something that will have a significant impact upon me. I think that will have to be earned, and no one can do this on my behalf and then inform me of the answer. So to everyone who's on a similar long-term spiritual journey, we're in this together. Let's not give up. We might be searching out different things. Not everyone is trying to solve the same question that I am, but we are all on this path of it's just going to take time, study and prayer and do whatever else before we can really get the answer that we're looking for. We have a mountain to climb, and the higher we get, the more we can see how everything fits together, and the more we're able to really understand and make those important connections. So reaching the top might take a lifetime, or a few, but just imagine, the moment of triumph. Once we do get to that pinnacle, and we're standing at the peak of this mountain, we're looking around, and we know that this has been earned. It's an achievement, and whatever rewards come from this, learning what we needed to learn or doing what we needed to do, those rewards are deserved, and we can fully enjoy them. So I think it's about keeping the eye on the ball and learning a little bit about delayed gratification, and just showing a little fortitude. In a lot of ways, we have it so much easier than previous generations. We have so much information at our fingertip. We can communicate with people all over the world, and provided there's a common language, we can consult and compare and contrast, we can really interact. It is so much easier to get on the right path on our spiritual journeys than what any of our previous generations ever had at their disposal. I mean, it is not even close. So in a way, I think we've become too accustomed to things being easy or being able to solve something in 5 minutes and not give it any further thought. So when we find ourselves caught up like this, let's enjoy the ride. We're walking the same pathways that so many other practitioners have trod before us. And there's value in this journey. There's value in the slowness of it, of the deliberateness, of the wrong turns and the mistakes and the things that you have to correct. And going through all of that process, it's a process of refinement. So let's allow ourselves to be refined. I think that's all I've got on the Goddess Modron for today. Thank you for listening. If you have your own experiences with her, please come and share them at the brew. There'll be a link to join in the description box below. But for now, I'll see you in another video.